Hi y'all, my name is Jayci Foster and Brad has asked me to share my testimony with y'all. So I'm just going to start from the beginning. My parents got divorced when I was 2 years old, and the first half of that, my dad is a person who took me to church and who was playing Christian music all the time when we were getting up and getting ready in the morning, and that was great and it was amazing, but church was really all that we did. We never read together, we never prayed together. It just wasn't really a relationship with the Lord. It was just more of going to church and that was it. And then around junior high, it kind of switched roles. I ended up moving in with my mom and just had kind of a messy situation with my dad and his new wife. And so ended up living full time with my mom instead of my dad. And then we started going to church as a family, and I met amazing people there who started loving on me and pouring into me when I was really young, but I still wasn't ready to give my life to the Lord. I didn't really pay attention in church until high school, and there was a big reason for that, for me starting to pay attention. But in high school and really my whole life, I found my identity in softball and in sports. That's all I really knew and all I loved. I had a mom who was an All-American softball player at Creighton University and who was just someone who was constantly doing sports with me, constantly playing catch with me, shooting hoops with me, just anything. It was something we bonded over and we loved to do together. We both just had this huge passion for it. So that just kind of shaped me growing up. That's who I was. I was an athlete, and that was really it. That's all I really wanted to be known for. That's all I was really known for. But I was okay with that in that time. But as we started going to church, there were certain things that were kind of catching my eye and catching my ear of like, oh, like these people are so happy. Like, why are they so happy, or why are they so joyful? And I'm doing what I love. I'm very passionate about softball. I find so much joy on the field, but it's not a joy like they're having and they're experiencing. And so there were things that like caught my eye, but it wasn't until my junior year of high school, going into summer, I hadn't committed anywhere for softball yet, and I had a couple coaches who were interested, but I hadn't committed anywhere, and we were at nationals for our summer ball travel team, and we were doing really well in nationals, but I ended up tearing my ACL in one of our games. And as an athlete, that's something where you're just kind of like, oh gosh, like what the heck, and now what? And so losing that, I didn't get to play my senior year of high school ball. I wasn't committed anywhere, and it was just kind of like the world was crashing, the world was ending. I didn't know what to do, and it really felt like it was over for me. And so luckily, I had a coach who was interested in me no matter what, torn ACL or not, and that was the head coach at Creighton University. So I ended up committing to Creighton University, and which is where my mom played. And so it's been my dream school since I was a little girl. I've always wanted to play there, not just because my mom played there, that's a big part of it, but I also just love their program and love what they're about. And so I was super excited that they still wanted me. But because tearing my ACL and kind of losing that identity that I thought I knew myself as, I really started paying attention in church, and because that's all I had. I had family and friends, but for knowing softball as being my world for my whole life, getting that kind of taken away, it really was a huge, all right, it's time for me to figure out, what else do I love? What do I want my life to be like? What do I want to do as a human being on this earth? And so all these questions started going through my mind, and high school was a really rough time for me. I partied, I gave into sexual temptation, I did all the things in high school, and it was just something where I was in the wrong friend group. I was just surrounded by not great people, great people, but not people who were doing great things, and it was just something that was really tough. I had a really tough high school experience, and I actually ended up meeting my husband in high school. I met him the end of my freshman year going into my sophomore year, and we dated all throughout high school. It was very on and off. I broke up with him at least 10 times, and I do not recommend that. I don't know how he's still with me, but it was something that kind of things that with my dad came into play. Him missing my games, him missing birthdays for work and for travel, just his relationship with his new wife, things became so rocky, and I was such a daddy's girl. Me and my dad were best friends. We were attached at the hip, and there was a whole bunch of things that happened that played out into the boys I was dating, the boys I was chasing, the relationships I were in that played a huge role in it, and I didn't realize it. And it was just something that it was toxic, and it was not healthy. And so just all around high school was really tough for me. But once I tore my ACL again, I started listening and paying attention in church, and there was a service that our pastor was talking about how we are these bows, and the Lord just wants to pick us up and shoot us to where he has planned for us. But sometimes we aren't allowing him, and we aren't trusting him fully to send us where he wants us to go. And there's just all these things that the Lord has for us that we won't get to experience, and we won't get to see if we don't chase him wholeheartedly, and if we don't trust him wholeheartedly. And so I was like, man, maybe that's what those people have. Maybe that's why they have joy, because they're chasing him wholeheartedly. They're trusting him wholeheartedly. So maybe that's why they're so happy. And so I was like, heck, I'm really sad and depressed and down. What else do I have to lose? Why not give him a chance? And that was kind of my mindset. Little did I know it was going to change my life. But so I ended up listening and taking notes and all this stuff. But after that service, at this time I was committed to Creighton. At that service, I really took a step back, and I was like, man, I think the Lord's about to send me somewhere, and I'm going to go. And I don't know what that looks like. And so I ended up talking to my mom after the service. I was like, Mom, I know you're probably not going to be happy about this, but I think I need to decomment from Creighton. I think the Lord is trying to send me somewhere, and I want to go. And she was just very new to this as well as I was. And so she at first was kind of like, oh, maybe you're just getting nervous. I was like, no, I'm being serious. I want to go. I want to trust him. I want to go where he has for me. I want to know him. I want a relationship with him. And I think the first step is stepping out in faith and going where he needs me to go, and letting him shoot me where he needs me. And so I ended up decommitting from Creighton, and within 24 hours, I didn't even know what this meant. I was going to play softball. I had no idea what this meant. And so I ended up decommitting from Creighton, and within 24 hours, I got a call from ETSU, an ETSU coach who used to coach at South Dakota State. So she's watched me my whole life, recruited me my whole life. And she ended up finding out that I decommitted from Creighton and was like, you need to come visit ETSU. We would love to have you. And I was like, I am like, Lord, I will go anywhere but South Dakota. And so I was just like, please, not South Dakota. And she's like, no, it's in East Tennessee State University. It's in East Tennessee, Johnson City. And I like thought back to when I was 9 years old, when I was watching University of Tennessee play at College World Series, and I fell in love with them. I love their colors. They were so good. I fell in love with them. I actually went on a visit to UT in high school, and they offered me to walk on for them before I tore my ACL. And so I was like, weird. Like, I wanted to go to Tennessee my whole life. I've loved Tennessee my whole life. There's just been this seed that was planted in me since I was little. Like, let's go. Maybe Tennessee is where I'm supposed to be. And so me and my mom got in a flight. We went out that weekend and went and visited. And when the plane landed, I was like, just this wave of peace and joy, like, overflowing me. And I was like, Mom, this is where I'm supposed to be. And she was like, we haven't even stepped off the plane. What are you talking about? I was like, I don't know. Like, I just know this is where he's sending me. Like, I just have this peace. I feel at home already. I just know this is where he's sending me. And she was like, well, let's just see the campus. Let's meet the coach. You know, Mom just being protective and stuff. And she's like, and then we'll talk about it. I was like, okay, whatever. But I already know. I already know this is where I want to go. So we get off, we view the campus, we go see the softball team practice, all this stuff. And it was just, from the get-go, I knew that's where I was going to go. And they ended up offering me a scholarship, and I ended up going. But a week before I was supposed to leave to Johnson City, Tennessee, where I knew only one person, my assistant coach, she calls me and she goes, I accepted a new coaching position at Troy University, whatever. I won't be there, but I wish you the best of luck. And I was like, oh gosh, like, I don't know anybody. I don't know one single person. Lord, like, I'm trying to trust you. I'm trying to have a relationship with you. Why? What the heck? And gosh, just the ways he works is amazing. And so I still ended up going. I was freaking out. I was so nervous. But I knew that I was going to be on a softball team. I knew softball my entire life. Teammates are family. Teammates are just someone that they're people you become friends with for life. And so I knew I was going to have friends. I wasn't nervous about that part of it, but I was nervous that I didn't know anybody. I was nervous that what if something happened or something was wrong? Like, I'm not going to have anybody there. And so I would get really nervous and worked up, but I ended up going. And it was life-changing, y'all. It was something where my relationship with the Lord went from 0 to 100, and it was just something where I met families, I met people who poured into me constantly and who loved me with no judgment. And that was probably one of the things I've never had in my entire life. And so it was so cool to go and to just meet these people. And I met two families, the Sorowski family and the Harris family, and both the dads of that family are youth pastors. And so Justin Sorowski was like my life mentor, just poured into me all over, was leading me and rising me up and just teaching me how to rise other people up and stuff. And then Phil was like my relationship mentor, and he was in the military for forever, and my husband was in the Marines for 2.5 years. And so Phil was that person who was just that relationship person, because it was really hard being in college and my then boyfriend, now husband, Jake, being in the military for 2.5 years. And so he was that relationship person, but I ended up meeting family out of them, and they still to this day are people that I love and adore. I go to Tennessee whenever I can. They've been to Nebraska, which I never thought would happen, but they've actually been here a couple times. And so it's just cool to see that the Lord planted those people in my life for a reason. And man, they just helped me know the Lord, and they gave me tools to know the Lord and how to read the Bible and stuff like that, which was so important. But a little over halfway through our season, my freshman year of college, as I'm on fire for the Lord, he starts slightly and slowly showing me like, okay, I'm going to send you back to Omaha, and I need you back in Omaha to be a light. And of course, I'm in love with Tennessee at this point. Softball's not really what I'm used to. It's not as competitive as I was used to it being. I wasn't doing great personally, but I didn't care. And I don't know if that was half the reason, I don't know. But I was just so in love with the Lord, and I was so in love with the people he was putting in my life and who he was bringing to mentor me and bringing to just get to know him better through these people. And I was just so in love with Tennessee in itself that I just didn't care about softball. I loved it, and I was so passionate about it, but it wasn't my world. It wasn't my identity anymore. And so it was very different for me. But as he started showing me like, all right, I need you in Omaha. I'm going to send you back to Omaha. I was so closed off to it, and I was so stubborn about it because I had only been in Tennessee for a year, and here's coming my best friends and my family now, and my home away from home. Like, it was just everything to me. And so I was like, what? Like, I don't want to leave now. Like, you sent me here. Why can't I stay? And all this stuff. And so I just started praying about it, and I was like, all right, Lord, like, this is what you have. I'm going to need this big old sign. And so, gosh, like, he really came through with the sign that he sent me. But I was going to tell my mom about everything that was going on, and she was coming up for a weekend series that we had. And so she comes up, and before I can even say anything to her, she's like, you will never guess who I ran into at the airport on the way here. And I was like, oh, who? And she's like, the Creighton coach, Brent Bigness. And I was like, oh, sweet. Like, how are they doing? What's he up to? Whatever. And she was like, oh, we just had this long conversation about you. He was so curious to see how you were doing. And I was just telling him about how amazing of a time you're having just in Tennessee. Like, softball hasn't been the greatest, but you're just so different. You're on fire for the Lord. You're having a relationship with him and all this stuff. And he was so proud of you. He's known me since I was little. So he's known me for a really long time. And he was just so proud of me and all this stuff. And she was like, and you know, he said something to me, and I feel like I just need to tell you. And I was like, oh, what? And she was like, he said that if you ever are wanting to come home or come back to Omaha for some reason, that his arms are always like wide open to you, and you can always call Creighton a home. Y'all, if you decommit from a school, there's no going back. Like, I was a mind blown. I was like, all right, Lord, that's a big sign. Like, you just don't go back to school that you decommit from, that you were committed to go play at. And so I was like, man, what grace. Like, that's crazy. And so obviously I think that was my big sign that, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to continue to trust him. Like, look at what he's done in this, the first step I took to step out and trust him. Look at all the stuff that he's done, the people he's provided for me, the amount of growth I've had of knowing him, and the layers that are coming off of me and the skin I'm shedding that is old, and he's made me new in him. And he's going to continue to do that in Omaha, but he needs to do that for other people in Omaha. And that's what was important to me. And so I ended up telling my Tennessee family or whatever that I was going to end up going home, and they were all really sad and all this stuff. I'd only been there for a year, so they're so proud of me, but it was just a sad thing to go through. But coming back to Omaha, my first year was rough. I had nobody. I mean, going back into a place where I fell short, I was in a dark place. I didn't know who I was or who I wanted to be, and I didn't know the Lord. Like, the first year was rough. There were so many temptations. There was just so much going on, and little did I know, when I decided and committed to coming back to Omaha when I was still in Tennessee, my husband ends up getting medically discharged from the Marines. And so we're coming home together at the same time when we have been apart for 2.5, 3 years long distance. And so it's just so cool, because in that time in Tennessee, me and my husband's then fiance had grown so much, and the Lord did work on our relationship, and he mended hurt, and he mended brokenness, and he brought us together in him and through him, and it was just something really beautiful to go through. So coming home together, being together was really exciting for us. But the first year, softball wise and school wise and community wise with the Lord, was really tough, and it was really hard. But I didn't insert myself into community. I wasn't looking for it. I was waiting for it to come to me. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I struggled so much. So me and my husband decided that enough was enough. We had kind of struggled and hit rocky parts again, and fallen short and sinned. So we decided, look, we need to get plugged into a church. We need to find a home church, and we need to commit to it, and we need to get plugged into it. And so we ended up going to City Light, and that was just the beginning of where I'm at now and where we're at now. But the Lord started working in our lives and in our families' lives, and brought us this community of people that were going to pour into us and challenge us and love us in ways that we needed and they needed, and that the Lord needed us to have. And so he is just doing all this work and bringing all this stuff to us, which was just amazing. But y'all, community is so important. And there's a story in the book of Mark that really shows that and explains that. When Jesus feeds the 5,000 with the 5 loaves and 2 fish, when he is doing in the process of that, there's this whole long story. If you've never read it, you should go read it. But he groups more than 5,000. He feeds 5,000, but more than 5,000, he groups them together, and I think it's into 50 people or something. Could you imagine how long it takes to group that many people into groups of 50? Like, he's putting them into community, and that's a clear image to us of why community is so important. He's about to do this miracle, and one of the steps that he takes is putting them into community. And so community is so important for us. But another really cool thing that has been so vital in my relationship with the Lord that I have learned and seen and he's shown me, that also goes along with this story, is that when he sends the disciples to go find this food, and they bring him back this little boy's lunch, which was 5 loaves and 2 fish, they bring it back and said, this is all we can find. How are you going to feed this? Like, how are you going to feed all these people with just this? And so he prays over this food, and then he starts breaking. He's breaking this food and breaking and breaking and breaking. And Christine Kane spoke on this, and she said something that has just stuck with me my entire life. And she said the miracle of feeding them happened in the breaking. And there's been times in my life where I have felt like I am just breaking. I'm at my breaking point. There are things, my husband and I have gone through a miscarriage, and that's something I got into, but I'm not going to get into because that's why it was 30 minutes long in the last video. But my husband and I went through a miscarriage, and it was just this breaking. It was constant like sadness and hurt, and it was really hard. But it was just something that I fell on my knees, and y'all, it shouldn't take things like that for us to fall on our knees. We should fall on our knees every single day. But I fell on my knees and face down, Lord, like crying out to him. And I was just breaking, and it was so crazy. I didn't know it, but the Lord was using that hurt and using that breaking to be a light to other women who have gone through it. And because I fell on my knees to him, he gave me strength to be vulnerable with other women and talk about it. I didn't even know who had miscarriages, or I talked to them and they hadn't had miscarriages yet, but then they ended up having one and ended up coming to me about it. And it was just, y'all, the fruitfulness of being vulnerable is crazy and will blow your mind. And it's a scary thing to be vulnerable. It's really scary to be vulnerable. But there's been so much fruitfulness in my vulnerability of sharing that and speaking about it to other women. But there was just this breaking that happened. And in that breaking, I didn't know the Lord was going to use that. He was going to mend me and my husband's brokenness, and just mend the hurt with his love and his grace. And he was going to use that to reach other women, to be light to other women, to give strength to other women. It wasn't me, it was him completely working in my brokenness and working in my mess to help others and to seek out other people. So don't be ashamed or afraid of your brokenness, because your brokenness can be somebody's healing and can be somebody's light and can be somebody's hope. And it's crazy how being vulnerable can just set up a platform for the Lord to move in other people's lives. And so that's one of the biggest things that I have learned. But I was reading today, and this is the last thing I want to share with y'all. I was reading today, and it was talking about how the people had obeyed the Lord's voice. And because of that, they had been blessed, and they had been given all this land that he promised he was going to give them. And to me, the biggest thing that stuck out was that they obeyed his voice. And the only way we can obey his voice is if we are in his word. If we are in his word daily, then we can tell his voice from the enemy's voice. Because there is, at times in our lives, there is times when the enemy is talking to us, when the Lord's talking to us, and our own thoughts are talking to us. And you are not going to know the difference of who's the Lord, who's the enemy, who's your own if you're not in his word. You're not going to know the difference of love and hate of these thoughts in your mind, because your thoughts are not always your own. And the enemy is constantly trying to distract you and destroy you and kill, steal, and destroy. He is constantly working to try to do that. So you've got to constantly be fighting him in the word so that you can fight off his voice with the Lord's voice. You can listen to that soft, gentle, quiet whisper of the Lord that is speaking love into your life. But when you're in the word, you're going to hear that, and you're going to be at peace with it, and you're just going to be able to rest at his feet with that soft, gentle voice that you're going to know so well. So obey his voice by being in the word. Obey him by being in the word. When we know the word, we can share the word, and we can send light out to this dark world of times that's going on right now. People need his word. People need his joy and his happiness and his love. So be vulnerable, obey his voice, and share his gospel, memorize verses, whatever you have to do. Be vulnerable, be bold, be courageous, because you will be so encouraged and surprised by who you touch and who you reach by doing that. And a lot of the times it's not going to look how you expect it to. Sometimes you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to be bold and courageous. I'm going to go out and share the word. And sometimes you're not going to get people who respond right away. But planting that seed in their lives is going to stick with them, and the Lord can work with that. He can work with that seed that was planted to help it grow so big and so bright and so big. So be bold, be courageous, pray for situations going on right now. Pray for your family, your friends who are struggling. Reach out to people, show them that you're there, show them that you care, because people need Jesus right now. But just don't forget, he's in control. He has never stepped down from the throne. He has not lost his spot on the throne. He is in control. He is alive and well, and he is working in this dark season. The biggest thing that I realized through my miscarriage is me and my husband have struggled for 9 months to get pregnant, and it's felt like such a dry season. It's felt like such a season of waiting and, oh my gosh, Lord, when? Like, when is this gonna happen? But instead of asking when, I've decided to dive into his word and dive into him. And because of that, in such a season that's felt dry, he's actually been so fruitful through it. And he's actually provided so much strength and encouragement and wisdom through it. So you have a choice in this dark season. Are you going to say, when is this going to be over? When is this stop? Is it going to stop affecting people? Or are you going to dive into his word? And are you going to seek him wholeheartedly? And are you going to be encouraged by his word and share his word so that he can be fruitful in this season of darkness? I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you guys have any questions about my testimony or want to know more, or you need prayer, or you need somebody to talk to about how to be vulnerable, or something that you've gone through that you've never shared with anybody, I would love to hear it. I would love to pray for you. I am a prayer warrior. I love prayer. That's one of my biggest things that I love doing and spending time with the Lord is in prayer. So I'm being serious 100%. If you need prayer, I will pray for you. So just tell Brad if you have something you would like to let me know, or reach out to me. Just let him know and he can get us connected. But I am praying for you guys and just for the seasons that you're in. And I hope maybe someday we could meet each other or whatever it is. But y'all are so lucky to have Brad and to just lead you and guide you guys. And I'm just so proud of him. So let me know again if you guys need prayer or anything. So thank you for listening.